Welcome to another episode of All Things in the Name of Love. And today I have with me a beautiful soul sister, Catherine Duncan, who we've just been talking a couple minutes beforehand, and I just love your energy so much. So I'm just going to do a really brief introduction and then we're just going to launch. So you are an integrative spiritual consultant, former trauma and hospice chaplain. Thank you so much for that work. And first-time author of your book, Everyday Awakening. And I love the name of that. Because it is. It is. And in your book, as well as your private practice, you counsel people on what it means to be alive and how to awaken into your heart and soul. That is so important. You've had 2 NDEs, which is amazing. Because I know I haven't had it, but I know from talking to other people how profound of a shift that causes in people and their awareness. Um, and I just love, I got to stop there because I just love how what I'm sensing, like, that's all informed how you show up in the world and how you can help others remember who they are, because we're not like so much it's not like we're I don't even know how to use words, but you know what I mean, like we're just remembering who we are. So I want to ask you, like, just talk to me about, like, were you like a spiritual kid, or how did that all come into being?
Yes, I would say I was a spiritual kid only after the first experience where facing directly into dying when I was 11 years old.
Okay.
When I 10, just turning 11, I went through being diagnosed with a very rare childhood cancer. It was very grim. Parents were told I had 20% chance to live.
Mhm.
I started very intensive treatments, chemotherapy, radiation, like just everything. And this is in the 70s. And
Mhm.
so they didn't have anti-nausea drugs. It was just they did a lot of amputation. It was just a
Oh.
pretty rough scene. And
Mhm.
they did have therapists, counselors, chaplains. I never saw anyone. No one talked to me. And when I became a chaplain, I said to my colleagues, like, "Where were you?" Because I met some that were at the hospital when I was a child. I'm like, "Where were you?"
Yeah.
But that's really when my journey started. I started to feel like I was between life and death. I was walking on a tightrope between life and death, and I
Mhm.
organically started to pray. I wanted to live even though faith had meant nothing to me, and that's when my whole being just cracked open.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I just started praying and didn't tell anyone, but praying, could I live? And I started praying, could I live to be 20? I look back now, I'm like, wow, how
Mhm.
interesting as a little child, praying to live to be a certain age.
Mhm.
And then this just deep feeling of peace poured through my
Mhm.
body, just took my breath away. And I was just like, a knowing there was something more, like I wasn't alone. I
Mhm.
was going to be okay. It was
Mhm.
so comforting, and that has been
Mhm.
with me to this day. I got through all the treatments. In fact, interestingly, a drug came in that year from Turkey that was randomly being given to patients. My father, who's been gone now for a number of years, but as a businessman, he demanded I get that treatment. That's now part of the
Cool.
standard treatment. The survival
Wow.
rate for what I had is now like 80%. And
Wow.
but I started as a teenager reading about life and meaning and purpose and why are we here? So there you go.
That's beautiful. I love that because it's just so fascinating. I didn't have a near death experience, but when my grandpa died, he sat on my bed for 3 days to let me know he was okay. And I got so freaked out because nobody in my family talked about that, even though very
Mm,
spiritual family, they didn't talk about it. So I just shut it down. So I thought, um, but I was probably like 15 or 16, and either it was the live or the replay of Joseph Campbell talking with Bill Moyers and the
mhm,
power of myth, and
mhm,
that just lit me up.
mm.
I was like, there is so much more. Like, if every culture has a flood story, there's got to be more to this. And I thought at the time I was going to be an historian, and I actually went on the journey of getting a PhD. but that didn't satisfy it.
Mhm.
So I love that we had that innate curiosity about the moreness and how that was like that fire that kept us in that
Mhm.
state of curiosity and wonder. And so, like, how did you expand from that knowingness as a teenager into like becoming a chaplain and help and like tuning into your spiritual gifts more? Because I think that's
Mhm.
just
No, it's a great question. Through my teenage years in high school, instead of going to parties, I was home reading just books like Jean-Paul Sartre, Existentialism, and then Who is Man, Abraham Heschel. I was reading all these amazing books.
Mhm,
And I did have one girlfriend where we would talk about these books. Um, I then, got through high school, went to college. After college, my whole family is in the corporate world and, was been in the corporate world. And so I started out in the corporate world in
mhm,
advertising. And then I was with Time Warner, Time Magazine. Amazing job, like incredible. But
mhm,
I'd go on these business trips and I would bring with me, books on, gosh, life, meaning, purpose, Wayne Dyer, like, Carolyn Mace, all these kinds of books. And
mhm,
my colleagues would make fun of me, like, what are you reading? So I just kept exploring and reading. I did do some pretty hardcore therapy in my late 20s,
okay,
actually. I
okay,
started, interesting and not surprising, I started having nightmares in my middle 20s that I was about to die because I'd never processed all that I
right.
witnessed and the trauma. So I found, actually, the first few therapists I controlled didn't work, but then I saw a therapist who was like, "You're gonna talk about your past, or I'm not seeing you."
Oh,
And
wow.
it was really incredible. That's where I really integrated what happened to me in my experience.
Mhm,
And then leading to, I was in the corporate world. It was fun. I was making a lot of money. I mean, I had the number one print job in the Twin Cities here. But my heart, after a number of years, was starting to feel restless. Like, oh, I don't think this is it. And it was that
mhm,
near death experience I had in 2000. I was in my middle 30s, whitewater rafting in Costa Rica, where
okay.
that serious turning point where I'm like, I'm done. I need to listen. Where am I being called? And I survived the whitewater rafting experience, but I left the corporate world to study theology. Mm-hmm.
I love that, and, a word that came in that I love is the integration,
Mm-hmm.
because we can know something, but to get from the knowing, the intellectual into the actual beingness of it
Mm-hmm.
is a fascinating process. Because like, I've seen patterns of myself, but I haven't been able to, like, get to it
Mm-hmm.
because it's like subconscious, so I'm aware of it, but I'm not fully aware of it until I have somebody point it out, and then I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool that you saw that," because I can't.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm present with myself, I feel into it, and then that knowingness just integrates into it, so I'm embodying a different frequency, and I
Mm-hmm.
I use frequency for how I describe things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But, like, I love that you had that awareness, because I had that similar thing with, like, I just, like, I'm done with being an historian.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like, thought that was my passion. No, it never was my passion.
Yeah.
I like studying people in different time periods because I think that's with technology, I think that's cool. However, that's not my passion.
Mm-hmm.
When I started tuning into my heart, I was like, "What did I love as a kid?" And it was animals. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, I'm feeling that turn, that shift of like, yeah, you were doing well, but it wasn't your sole purpose. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, what drew you to theology of all levels of spirituality that you could have chosen?
Mm-hmm. After I left, I mean, on that whitewater rafting trip, I survived this treacherous experience. And interestingly, when I flew home from Costa Rica, I was in a taxi driving home to my house. And I just happened to call my mother, who was religious through, but never shared a dream. And out of nowhere, before I even told her what happened, she's like, Catherine, I dreamed that I slipped into a river and I almost drowned. And then I woke up. It was the day that that happened to me. It was just
Wow.
like, it was just all the whole experience of that was just like, I'm done. So
Mhm.
I had the courage and luckily the support with my husband to quit, but I was picking up then some, smaller jobs for money.
Mhm.
And but I was deeply on a deeper level praying and meditating and journaling and just trying to listen, like, where am I being called?
Mhm.
And interestingly, it was at late at night, a girlfriend and I were talking, my friend Connie, and late at night, out of nowhere, she said, if you're studying theology, spiritual direction, you would think I'd have thought of it, but I never, for the volume of books I had been reading. And when she said, I was like, huh, I mean, no, in my family,
Yeah.
kids, there's no minister, anything what I do now. But when I looked into some of the schools in the Twin Cities, it was just like my body, when I got materials from St. Catherine University, it started shaking. It started physically like, it was just a knowing, like a visceral, like palpable shaking of
Wow.
like, this is it. And it gave me
Wow.
the courage to apply to get in and then to tell my family because my siblings all in business. When I told them I'm studying theology, they all were like, what? Like, what are you doing? And my father, consummate businessman, he actually started yelling at me, like screaming at me, like leaving Time Warner. And he thought I said geology. And I'm like, no, theology. So, but it was just like, I knew this was the path. It was just a
Yeah.
deep knowing
Mhm.
I felt on many levels.
Yeah, I that deep knowing, it's such a fascinating place because I've had that. I used to, when I was younger, ignore it at
Mm.
my peril because I didn't know any better, right? And
Mhm.
now it's like it even sometimes, if I can tell that I'm in my head, I'm like, okay, I got to be present. Then I'll ask my body to show me what a yes and a no feels like, and
Yep.
then I'll get back into my heart
Mhm.
and I'll be out of my head again.
Yep.
And as a former academic, that's a process, but,
Mhm.
it's like it's a daily practice, and I'm
It is
grateful
a
that I have that practice.
practice. Mhm.
Some things I've mastered, that's just one I practice.
We all do. We all do. And
Yeah.
that's why I wrote my book. It's like, how are you choosing to live every
Yeah.
day?
It's such a gift, like, because like, we have the choice of how we're gonna live our days, and
Mhm.
I think that's something that we don't fully get. And so I want to talk to you about that because it's really interesting because we get into routine
Mhm.
and how that routine of comfort zone can have such a powerful effect on limiting us.
Mhm. Well, even starting with, and this is the first chapter of my book, I have the 5 practices is come back to the present moment.
Mhm.
We know, every one of us hearing this right now, you're not your thought. I mean, we have 60, 70, 80 thoughts a day. You're not your thought. You're not that feeling. You're that essence, that silence presence behind that. So when you
Mhm.
really take that in, it's like, I can watch my thoughts come and go. So
Yeah.
then tuning in, how am I living my day? Am I living my day where my mind's running me all day long? I mean, it's so easy, I think today, so many people live head up. Their mind is running them, but tuning in mid-morning, mid-afternoon. Where am I? Oh, I've been in my mind for hours. Can I take a moment and just breathe, feel
Mhm.
into just here and now, this moment? There's like, zoom. That's when you drop into the moment, to that peace, that ease, that
Mhm.
aliveness. It's not found in our mind. And it's a consciousness, it's a choice, it's a practice.
That I know. I know I'm already feeling it. If it's not raining out, I'm gonna go ground when we're done
Mm-hmm.
because I'm an Aquarian and grounding is really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know my tendencies, I know the predilections that I have to be in my head.
Mhm.
And yet when I'm on the ground, I do not care about a single thing.
Mhm.
I'm just in that innocent state of receiving, and it's like a partly cloudy day today, so I get to, like, witness the different shapes of the clouds, and I love that because it's just such a gift for me to know myself well enough to know that that's what I need to reset
Mhm.
myself.
Yep. Yep. Mhm. Yep. So, and every one of us is different. For you, grounding. For me, just moments of presence. If it's feeling my breath, feeling the bottom of my feet while I'm breathing, just gosh, getting out
Yeah.
and walking. There's so many different ways to
Mhm.
just be here now.
Yeah. And it's just a matter of, like, having that awareness of, like, my
Mhm.
I had, I'm a super sensitive person, and as a child, I had, an emotionally unstable upbringing, not bad, but just, like, well, it's like, I don't even know how to describe it. I'm just sensitive
Mhm.
to people with different emotional
Mm.
capacities,
Yep, yep.
and
I'm
my
just
mom did not have a great emotional capacity to deal with her stuff, so, I would distract myself, and that was an addiction for decades.
Mhm.
And so to recognize that, I mean, we all have addictions. It
Mhm.
can be, and it's, nobody wants to admit that watching television 6 hours a day is an addiction, but it is. Or
Mhm.
eating the same, like, pint of chocolate every day or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like everything can be an addiction if you rely on it to distract yourself from yourself.
Mhm. Absolutely. And with what you're sharing, being really sensitive, I mean, similar. I'm very sensitive. I'm very empathic. I'm very attuned to energy. I've been working with, consciousness of my energy, but then how much energy of the world, people around me, even including my family that I love, but how much do I take in?
Mhm.
And mindful of that. And I have a mindful energy practice I do every day of my life and have for going on 25 years. And it's game changer. I mean,
Yeah.
because even in the world today, not I really honestly don't watch TV, but even getting news headlines, which I do to keep on top of like, well, what's going on? But
Mhm.
the energy of the world, there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of unrest. And how can you find that grounding and balance in just your everyday life? It's so important.
Yeah. I completely agree with that because, like, it's so easy to, like, I didn't even know what I was doing. I have given my energy away for decades
Hmm.
because I didn't feel like I felt like I had to prove myself, right?
Hmm.
And this is recent. I didn't see it until I saw it, and I was like, "What am I doing? Like, I'm worthy. What part of me thinks I need to give myself away to make people like me when I'm enough?" And I'd
Hmm.
seen it on, like, a level, but I hadn't seen it, and so, like, I have the power to pull all my energy back. It doesn't matter the time and space of it. I'm just calling it back in. And then
Yep.
I have the ability to choose whether or not I consent to giving my energy away or not.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. I even practice, and I share this in my book, not only energy and how you work with energy, but let's say at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I just feel kind of extra heavy. Whoever I was around at the grocery
Hmm.
store, or maybe a client, how to work with what's called cutting cords. You don't
Yes.
need that extra energy. So mindfully, how do you let it go? And that's just
Hmm.
a practice I do regularly.
I love that because it's so important because we take on like, even at the grocery store, the person next to us. If there's
Hmm.
like I had that at a deli a couple of weeks ago. Some guy just came into my field and I was like, "Hi." And he asked me this really not important question, but his energy was like, "Hey, I like your energy." I'm like, "Ooh, we're just gonna turn the volume down on you, man." And then I cut cords as soon as I had the awareness to know that he was trying to, like, tap into my energy because he could feel it. Because 'cause I'd just given a workshop talking about energetic awareness in animals, and I was high off that, and I was just really grateful that I was able to bring awareness, and so he could feel that energy. He's like, "Ooh, I want that." And I describe my energy as like a cinnamon roll. because I watch how people, like, come up to me and they're like, "That is oh, I just need to," and I'm like, "No, no, 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 you don't get the cinnamon roll."
That's so funny.
But,
Um,
I mean, I see it and, like, having that awareness of just, like, seeing how you show up in the world and how people
mhm.
respond to you,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
fun
Mhm.
because, like, you can see the people that are repelled by you, the people that love you, the people that have no idea what to do with you,
Mhm.
and you're just being, and that beingness is
Right,
so much fun because then you're not in your ego. Like,
right.
when I do my sessions, I have absolute confidence in the fact that I'm the channel.
Mhm, for
I
sure.
am I'm grateful that I'm the channel. I have no healing powers myself.
Mhm.
I am grateful enough to be able to channel the information that the animal needs that they know that they can talk through me.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah. No, I set up my intention and my energy in the
Mhm.
morning and then before my client visits, before my talks, and it's just like vroom. So I'm like fully
Mhm.
grounded.
Mhm. I even use I have this spray that I use, that's frankincense, lavender, and fragonia that
Mm,
I was guided to create a couple years ago, and it just clears the energy. And I
nice.
do it before each podcast so I can, like, just have a clean energy with the person I'm talking
Mhm,
to. And it seems like a simple thing, but, like, it really makes a difference, and if you pray like, I prayed before, um, we started this that we'd have such a like, a light conversation,
mhm,
meaning that we're bringing light in, because I could feel the energy coming in, and I'm like, "I just wanna make sure that we are just bringing in the highest energy through this,
mhm.
'cause that intention," like, we don't I don't remember being taught that intention and consent were a thing, you know? And yet it makes such a difference.
Mhm, mhm. And I think what we embody, yeah, is the energy we hold. And just we know research that holding love, gratitude, highest vibrational energies that
Mm,
we can hold.
yeah,
And just being conscious of where am I? And yes, in life, life is messy. Of course, we're all going to have experiences of anger, sadness, grief, but just to know that emotions aren't permanent. Can we have the courage to
yeah.
feel them? The pathway to healing is truly feeling the feeling, even just a little bit, and it will start to dissipate. And then how do you, grow the good? How do you feel love? I mean, I have a practice every morning. I've done this for years where I wake up and I have a few minutes of gratitude. I
Mm,
think about like I'm alive. Wow. I have a bed, I have family, friends.
mm,
But then not only do I think it, but then I feel that
mm,
energy, thankfulness, love. I can feel it vibrating in my body. So powerful. It
yeah.
feels great. And then I have a few minutes of prayer, see my day, how it's going to flow. Before I get out of bed, it sets a
Mhm.
tone for my day.
I do 2 practices that I picked up from 2 friends. One is, after I wake up after I do my prayers and I do my energetic, protection and all of that, that's like the first half hour of waking up, and then I journal, and the first question I write in the day is, "How can I have a fantastic day?"
Nice.
And, like, the stuff it's not like anything I do. It's
Mhm.
like, sniff a flower, ground, and be present, stuff like that, and they're just, like, one word comments, like, that's what it's become. It was, like, sentences before, and now I've been doing it for a while. I was like, "No, you just need to, like, set the tone." And then the second question I ask is, "What does my soul want to tell me?"
Mm.
And I'm getting at an alpha wave, so I'm really present with what comes through,
Mhm.
and I love the perspective.
Mm.
Because it's like, it's the higher self of me coming through me to show
Mhm.
me, like, what is going on a deeper level, and the reflections, and then a couple times a day, I hug myself.
Nice.
Because it's just like we're supposed to get many hugs a day, and so throw in a couple hugs like this, and
That's so
just
nice.
embrace myself for a few minutes because I can
Yeah.
feel that energy, and it's just like, yes, it's quote unquote weird, but like I'm
It's
used to being
weird.
weird.
Yeah, and you know what? In the end of the day, it's actually not weird. You are regulating your body,
Mhm.
you are calming your nervous system, you are helping yourself feel love. I mean, there's actually like a havening. It's called havening practice of just feeling your arms, tapping, hugging yourself. I do a self-soothing where I put my hands on my chest and I just breathe. And it just calms
Mm.
my body. And then you can add a loving kindness phrase, may I be at peace, or I'm like, give me peace. And I just breathe. And it's so soothing. It's a, yeah, soothing practice.
Oh yeah, because it's so like especially in this time of consciousness, there's so many distractions that
Mhm.
can really take us out. And what I'm noticing and what I'm seeing with my connection with my spirit team is there's this almost a drive
Mm,
to quiet myself down more and
yeah.
more because it's like the ripple effects of that act are affecting the chaos in the consciousness.
Mm-hmm. So,
And
mm-hmm.
yeah, and it's like I'm not taking on anyone's energy, but I'm allowing that energy to exponentially grow. Um, because we all have that power. We've
Yep.
forgotten it. Like we
Mm-hmm.
are um, like what I hear, and this is my greatest call. My second greatest call is to help the animals. The first greatest call is to fully embody my Christ, fully remember and embody my Christ consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
which we all have.
Yeah.
And that means unconditional love.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So how are we showing up for ourselves with unconditional love? Because the more we do that, the more we can embody it, and then we can just be it, and that has ripple effects.
Absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, that's why we're here. We're here to learn how to love.
Yeah.
We take with us, and I was with hundreds and hundreds of people as they died as a chaplain, is love.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
love. It's that love and light of who you are.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's how do you tune into that? How do you feel that that is our essence? And
Yeah.
we, I do believe, to the extent that we really truly love ourselves, is how we can then really love another.
Mhm.
I think that's the reason we're here is love.
I completely agree because like I've seen in my own life as I have mastered this triggers. I
Mm-hmm.
have mastered triggers, meaning that I know exactly what to do when I'm presented with a trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how to navigate it, and my whole body just is like, oh, trigger. Okay, we're just shutting down the brain and we're just gonna be present with ourselves. And I am until I feel the movement of the energy. And I love that. And through that, I've seen so many relationships shift
Mm-hmm.
because I'm loving myself more. Some leave, some show up. The frequency shift, my abilities to relate with others on different frequency shifts. And there's nothing wrong with any of it. It's just that I'm being more aware of how I'm showing up in the world and interrelating with other people.
Yep. Yeah. I think it all comes down to awareness. Awareness.
Mhm.
Where am I growing that awareness muscle? And then am I reacting? Am I responding? How am I engaging in life in each moment?
I love that you say reacting and responding because there's such a big difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was first learning how to deal with triggers, I had just started learning somatic presence with myself. And so I'm like, my brain's like, let's combine these things. Like I'm getting triggered and I'm learning how to be present with myself. So the person that would trigger me, I'd just start crying because like I wanted to feel the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd thank him because I know he wasn't the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even know I had that button that he pressed,
Mm-hmm.
but he pressed it, and it was for me to be present with that, and, like, so I'd be crying, and I'm like, "Thank you so much for doing that for me because I didn't know I had it," and he was just looking at me like, "You're welcome."
I know when we get triggered in a way, it's so great because it's like ah, something more to work on, to clear
Yeah.
out of my body, out of my being. Yep.
Yeah, I had this the other day, there was a coach that I was working with, and And she's like, "There's something here and you need to just like dig in." And I'm like tuning in. I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna be in my heart. I'm gonna be present." And then I heard it. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I've been looking for this for so long." I know what it was. And she's like, "That's so cool." And I'm like, "Well, I'm excited now." And she's like, "Wait, you're excited about this?" I'm like, "Yes, because it was something I couldn't see."
Mhm.
And when we approach it like that, it's like a puzzle. Like you have a
Yep,
jigsaw puzzle of you and you lost the piece and now you found
yep,
it.
yep, and it's just learning, opening, learning, growing, and it takes, an effort, some consciousness, like, "Yep, yep, yep, there's more to learn."
Mhm, mhm, and it's that excitement, like, if we go, "Oh, geez, I gotta, like, process this thing again, I don't wanna do it, it's so hard." Well, then it's gonna be hard,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So, and the layers of awareness that we can bring into our consciousness are fascinating.
Mhm. So fascinating. And
Like,
I just think we can all listen and hear and sense. Every one of us has a gift. Is it sensing, feeling, hearing? We all have these gifts. I mean, when I worked as a trauma chaplain at our level one trauma hospital, I mean, I would get guidance in the middle of the night after I was done with the really rough shift, like, you're done. Or I'd be like, one more patient's coming in. I mean, I really got
oh,
heard
wow.
guidance. I see a lot. I
Okay.
mean, we all have these gifts, but you have to, really be still, quiet, and feel and listen, and just what is that deep inner guidance, and how are you being guided? It's there.
Yeah. Oh, it is. I used to as a teenager, I used to get, song lyrics
Mm,
regularly. Like, song would just come in, and I'm like, I really? That's okay, so I'm like but I didn't know that there was a message for me in there. Now I
mm,
do, and I don't get as many songs, which is really curious, but I have a deep inner knowing now.
mm,
I used to be a visionary.
mm,
I recently had a session because I love that was I found out I developed it so well because it was a coping mechanism, right? So, like, sure,
mm,
you can future cast, whatever. I recently had a session with my mentor, and she was like, "You gotta be here now." Because, like, when you cast in me specifically, when I cast into the future, I'm taking energy away from my present self. Because phones. It's okay. It's muted, so it's all good. So, for me, I'm not allowed to, like, feel into the future anymore.
interesting.
Just for
Yeah.
now.
So tell me, what happens when you do
Oh, I get out of my body. I'm
that?
having a fun old time and like I just feel the future self and I'm
Mhm,
there, but I'm taking energy away from my present self.
mm,
I'm
mhm,
like, "Oh, I
mhm.
hadn't got
That
that
makes
angle
sense.
before because I'm really good at it."
Yeah, that makes sense though.
And I'm like, "Oh, I have a bank now and I can fill that bank up or I could take from that bank and put it in the future, but if I
Mhm.
put too much in the future, I don't have enough for the present."
Yep, yep.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can see that now."
Mm,
Because I couldn't see it before. She's like,
yeah,
"When you're
great
here, you're here.
journey.
When you're there, you're there. You don't need to be there
Mhm.
while you're here." And I'm like, "Got it.
Great,
Okay."
that's so good.
Yeah. So, like, now it's like the knowingness, the sensing, the feeling, and the audio like, I hear things. I definitely hear things, but it's not songs anymore.
Mhm. And do you hear, like, a voice, or what do you hear? What's the guidance?
It's usually like well, it depends, like, with the animals, it's a voice, which is really cool, like,
Mhm.
it's like the body talk chart, and then I get stuff that's not in body talk that I haven't been trained in that comes through, and I
Mhm.
just hear it and I write it down, and there's no question, there's no muscle testing, it's just because the animal's telling me directly what they need,
Mhm.
and, somebody asked me recently, I was like, "Well, can you do other languages?" I'm like, I don't know because I haven't tried it yet, but I don't see why not because it's just going to come through my consciousness. So it doesn't matter. It's going to be translated into whatever I need to write down. And so, sure, of course I can do anything because we all can do anything. And, and then when I'm doing my writing and my journaling, it just flows through
Mm,
and it's
mm,
not even heard. It's just like coming through me. And
yep,
then I read it later and I'm like, okay, this is really amazing to see.
yep.
A couple months ago, I was guided to write an article about consciousness in animals, and I heard press dictate.
Hmm.
I was like, okay. So I'm like dictating and I'm seeing the words come out of me that I'm not thinking, but they're coming through. So it's like it comes in different ways and it's just fascinating.
Yeah, wow, it sounds like channeling.
Yeah. How does it come through for you?
I think we each have a choice if we want to be a medium or if we want to channel, or I
Mhm.
mean, I've been seeing spirits for 24, 25 years.
Wow.
And so I see different levels, dimensions of reality. When I was with people at the end of life dying, they'd come back and see me for a few moments in the night. And so I still to this day, I see quite a bit. I hear, I
Mhm.
get a lot of guidance, but I've consciously chosen that I don't need to channel through my body.
Okay.
That's just a choice. Being a medium, a channel, I'm like, no, don't feel like I need to do that.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
I do get a lot of guidance. And to me, my understanding, take this with a grain of salt, but that death is not an end. We do not die. I've seen way too much, experienced way too much, that our spirit transforms, it goes on, and I find that comforting. And what I do sense and feel in general, it's comforting, so I use it as guidance, but I've chosen not to actually channel through my body. No.
mhm. I can definitely see that. Like I'm just gonna bring this thought up. My awareness, I've been able to see all my family members die, which is really cool. My mom has dementia now, and it's so trippy to like see what dementia is from this level of my awareness. But when my dad died, he was in hospice. He was in intensive care for 3 months, and then he went to hospice because like his entire digestive system got eaten by a staph infection. And I'm not trivializing that, but I'm just trying to like quicken the story. And so he's in hospice and we leave for the day because mom's just exhausted and we're driving home. I hear my phone ring. I'm like, that's dad. He just died. I listen to the message. It's dad. He just died. So we come back and I look at his body. I'm like, where's dad? Because his essence isn't in it. And he looks
Right.
like a wax figure. He's a John, like all of a sudden John just kicked in and like he's this wax figure. And I'm like, where's dad? And I'm looking at the body. I'm trying to figure out where dad is because he's not
Yeah.
there. And then
Right.
I feel like that was dad.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I've had that
And
many times.
so it was so cool because like I knew his essence went on. And
Mhm.
that's actually what started me to like remember who I am more because it was such a profound experience of that I can't lie about this. I can't deny this about myself. Like I've seen other people die and yet
Mhm.
I pretended that it wasn't real. And then that was just like I can't make that up. He
Yeah.
was like a firework going across the universe.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, so I'm grateful. I miss the physical being. I think that's the thing that we miss the most is because we can't hug people.
Mhm.
Um, but their energy's still around.
Oh, totally. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Mm,
it's learning how to let that energy in
yeah.
because
Being
they don't,
open. Just
yeah.
being open. Can you be open? And just that is a choice. I mean, I'm sure
Mhm.
everyone hearing this, some people have people around them, family and friends are like, this is life or this is what life is. But I
Mhm.
just invite people to be open.
Mhm. I appreciate that because there is so much more. I talked to somebody yesterday, his dachshund died recently, and he's like, I think she still sees me. And I'm like, of course she does. He said, it sounds a little strange. I'm like, not to me, it doesn't. But he
Mhm.
wasn't used to talking to people. I mean, the normal thing is we're all spiritual
Mhm.
and we have all these amazing gifts that allow us to connect with the non-physical. Um,
Mhm.
the abnormal is pretending that's not true.
Right, right, right. I wear a spirit in a body for a short time. We're eternal. We go on and transform.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that because we get to choose. I mean, we incarnated with my sense is we incarnated with just for to-do list of things we wanted to like complete in this lifetime. I,
Mhm.
that explains why I do to-do lists all the time. Anyways, so like we choose our body, we choose our parents, we choose our ancestors, we choose all of this. And all of the life experiences we have are designed specifically. We chose these beforehand,
Mhm.
and that's a hard thing to remember because our consciousness is victim consciousness.
Right, right. Same
And
thing in our human, that human ego mind.
right, and yet we chose all of the traumas, all of the misaligned actions, all of the things to help us remember
Mhm.
how powerful we are.
Mhm. Yep. No, I believe in reincarnation, and we're here to keep learning and growing, and life can be messy, and yet it comes down to how are you choosing to live every day. We're all making choices either consciously or subconsciously. We're all choosing how our life is unfolding.
Right. And given that the subconscious is most of our brain, um, being able to like pause, that's the biggest part for me is like, I know most of me is being run by my subconscious.
Mhm.
If I slow down,
Mhm.
I can bring more consciousness to that subconscious
Mhm. Yep, for sure. I would agree with that completely.
because it's a tough place. It's hard to
Oh,
like
yeah. Mhm. Life can be very hard.
Mhm. And to give ourselves the grace. I remember a couple years ago, I was told to be more graceful with myself. I okay.
Mm,
What does
nice.
that mean? I said, how do I be more graceful? And they're like, be more graceful.
Mhm.
Okay. Because
Mhm.
I don't, it's an elusive term.
Yeah. Yep. Being kind, loving to ourselves.
Yeah.
There's research now when you're loving and kind to yourself, you have a stronger immune system, better social connections. You're just a happier, more optimistic person. There's just amazing research. One of the leaders in that field is, well, Kristen Neff and Kelly McGonigal. Kelly McGonigal was at Stanford researching when we're kind and loving, amazing, positive benefits physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Hmm. Mm. How do you help your clients?
I meet with people now in my private practice, providing emotional and spiritual support. So
Mm.
it may be unearthing, like a hybrid therapist, unearthing family of origin, something from childhood or unrest to find that deeper peace and grounding within, but also
Mm.
teaching people skills and tools if it's finding more grounding or present moment or love or flow. My book Everyday Awakening has 42 exercises. How do you
Wow.
do it? So it's not just staying in your mind talking, but how do you do it? And I'd love to share with people, let's try this exercise, let's do this, and just see how it feels, because we're all different and different things resonate with each one of us.
Hmm. I love that.
Mm.
I love that you have the ability to tune into the ways to support each being because I learned this in school. Nobody thinks the same. Nobody is the
Mhm.
same. And to honor that piece of the mosaic of source that we all are as the individual they are on their healing journey is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's so important. So important. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lovely to talk with you.
Yeah, same here. I'm just loving your energy. You're such a beautiful soul, and I just wanted to reflect
Mm.
that to you.
Oh, thank you. I feel the same with you. I mean, just a deep spirituality and presence and
Thank you.
Mm.
Mm. So I'm going to ask you the final question, and that is how can people find you?
My website, so my book, Everyday Awakening, my website, everydayawakening.com.
Mm.
And I'm all over social media with my book promotion and book tour now. So on Instagram, Catherine with a C, Catherine Duncan. It's at the end, MABCC. I'm on LinkedIn, the same name, TikTok, the same name. I'm on Facebook as my company name, Learning to Live. So if you just Google my name, you'll see a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, Catherine, I want to thank you so much for the light you are in the world, for the work you do in the world, and for your beingness.
Well, thank you. Just a delight to talk with you. Blessings to you and everyone hearing this today.
Thank you so much, my sister.